Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first episode on the In Between. This is John with my good friend and also the co-host of the show, Case.
Hey everyone, welcome! We're super excited that you can join us today. This podcast is all about honest conversation and stories that connect cultures and explore how our experiences shape who we are as cross-cultural people.
We will laugh, reflect, and maybe disagree a little bit. But most of all, we hope you enjoy the conversation and get inspired. So relax and grab your drink, get comfortable, and welcome again to the first chapter of our journey together. All right, so our first episode over here is pretty good. How are you feeling?
I know, I'm excited, man. Ready to talk about some good topics here about, our backgrounds and what it means to be a third culture kid.
Yeah, there's the thing. Like we have been talking about the third culture for such a long time. Since I think it's all within us. I think it's all within us for I don't know, maybe over a decade already, right?
Yeah, for sure. Just kind of thinking back when I first met you back in Hawaii, like I didn't know you were a third culture. I didn't know what your background was.
Right, yeah. Think because I moved to Hawaii when I was 15. So
Yeah.
whatever before 15 was pretty much just Taiwan. I'm from Taiwan, by the way. Everything is Taiwan, Taiwan this, Taiwan that. I mean, go to I did travel. I did travel to Japan quite a bit.
Hmm.
Maybe 2 or 3 times before 15 years old, but nothing really like cross cultured or maybe even third culture until I moved to Hawaii. So that was pretty surprising for me in the first place. So
I see. I
and
see.
I did not see a lot of people as third culture either at that time until later. So yeah.
I see. So it's more like you were kind of like discovering the, I guess, idea and phenomenon of different cultures and the idea of cross-cultural awareness when you started maybe living in Hawaii and meeting others who kind of had a similar background, I suppose.
Well, in fact, the word third culture or maybe cross culture didn't come in my dictionary until when I was in college. When I Yeah, should be in college, yeah.
Hmm.
So I was like just living in Hawaii, like, free, free and no stress. Meanwhile, getting my education. But towards the end, when I met more and more, students from abroad, from other countries, especially from Asia, then I started to know more about cross-cultured situations and stuff.
I
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Hmm.
So you too, right? I mean, you probably because you lived in Japan when you were like so young, and you probably just live in Japan like, growing up and with no stress and stuff, but later on you learn about it, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know about no stress, but this might be a good chance to also kind of share a little bit about my background with our listeners. Um, for myself, I actually grew up in Japan, even though I'm originally from the United States. I was there for I would say, at least 11 years of my adolescence. And I pretty much went to school with only Japanese students. So there was a lot of situations where I felt some friction in terms of being an outsider.
Right.
But naturally, I myself identified as someone who was raised in Japan. So it's a lot of confusion at certain points. So I would say that was part of my experience. And then I finally came into my own person, again, probably similar to you when I was in college and started meeting others who, like yourself, had kind of gone through these experiences and finally was understanding what it really means to be a TCK.
Right, right. Yeah, I think TCK is maybe we did not know about this term, but we live as a TCK, from the beginning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, from the beginning. Yeah. Um, so you wanna I know you look into this TCK thing quite a bit. Do you wanna explain what TCK is?
Yeah, of course. So, for those who are not familiar with the term TCK or third culture kids, um, there's not really a fourth culture or something like that. It's mainly when someone who has two cultures that they identify with, and this can be even within a single country or just the way you're raised, so to speak. So let's pretend that you were raised on the west coast of the United States, California, and
Right.
then maybe at some point you move to the East Coast, where the culture there is quite different. Even though you speak the same language, just the way people are and what their values are may be quite different. And this, is even more so when you change from like a country from a Western background to maybe somewhere that's more conservative or collective, like Japan, for example. But where those two cultures, let's pretend those cultures are circles, when they overlap, that area in the middle where they both overlap and intersect, that becomes that third culture, that intersection. And that's where someone like myself or Jon here has this third culture that starts to manifest, where they kind of feel most comfortable, neither in between. They're in between, so to speak, of these multiple other cultures.
It's like a combination of two cultures, and you live in between that.
Exactly.
Right.
To help maybe visualize it, a Venn diagram is a good idea. Yeah, with overlapping circles. And we're
Right.
looking at the in between there.
That's why this channel is called In Between, by the way.
Yes.
Yes, because both of us we're like living in what we call we'd call it a third culture, but we live in between two cultures, and then we always live like in our I wouldn't say in our universe, but I mean it's more of like in our own domain. Yeah, but we're adopting from both cultures, even maybe the
Yes,
third
for
culture,
sure.
if necessary.
Yeah. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
it's a rough explanation, but I think we'll dive into that deeper as we go along.
Go along. Yeah. Yeah. It's so much to talk about. So much to talk about. Yeah. So, like, what is your what is your understanding of TCK in your perspective? Because for me, I think is well, of course, there are advantage and disadvantage. Pros and cons. It's always like that. But for me, for the pros are like I get to know a lot of different things.
Hmm.
That's my understanding of
I
TCK.
agree
Like
with that.
you can get to meet a lot of people, you can get to, like understand different cultures and stuff. And sometimes like when you are when you're not you don't have so much money to travel around, especially like to Europe or South America, especially from Asia. And when you meet someone from there, you could get to know the culture, get to know what they eat, what they think, on the other side of the earth. I think that's the best way to be a third culture kid. You get to know different people from different cultures that you don't actually travel to that destination. Of course, if you do travel to that destination, it's much better. But if you don't, that's actually the cheapest way to know, get to know a place. Yeah. But for cons, I would say like sometimes you don't feel like, you know, like to be understood. But that we can talk about. We can dive deeper later on further down the road. But sometimes you do feel like people don't understand you. Maybe you look different
Hmm.
or you act different, you talk different, you think different, especially think. I think that's the think that's the cons for being TCK. Yeah. What about you? Like, what do you think?
I was thinking how to approach this question, and the one I want to start with first is a question that was always asked to me uh, growing up is where's home? Or where are you from when you
Ah,
meet
that's
new
right.
people? I'm sure you've been asked this question several times.
Yeah, yeah, quite a bit, quite a bit.
And yeah, sure, we look Asian, we look white, and they're like, oh, you must be from one of those countries. But it's not such a simple answer, I felt. And, I felt as I got older, I would be less and less motivated to answer the question in depth. I would just say the last place I was living. It was just, easy question. And
Yeah.
depending on the amount of interest they showed, and especially if they themselves had a similar background or was multicultural, they
Hmm.
may say, no, but really, where are you from? Or they might dig a little bit deeper because they know that that might not be the whole answer. And you can start to identify who else might be a TCK or CCK at that point. And that starts to kind of build those stronger connections. Um, and the reason why I kind of brought that question up, where's your home, is because it's difficult to answer, and it's not about like where you belong, but it's also, to me, it connects to things that you're interested in. Because I remember like when I'm perhaps talking with like family who stayed back in the United States, they talk about certain topics that I'm not so familiar with. Or if I'm with maybe some Japanese people, it's the same thing. So I feel I'm kind of out of the circle, so to speak.
Uh,
And when you're trying to find that third culture, it's also about finding people who also are interested in the same topics as you, because they might not be uh well, it's difficult to describe. It's very difficult to find that niche, that person who also likes the niche things that you like, right? Because you never
right.
really belonged anywhere for a long time. So that also includes not just the culture, but the things you were exposed to.
But do you think time really matters in this case, though? Because for me, time doesn't really matter. It's how deep, how um, how I truly live in the community that matters.
I see. Yeah, I guess if you do interact strongly with your own community where you are at that moment, you can start to grab hold and grow roots there and
Right,
find that belonging, so to speak. Yeah.
right, right.
But I also put a negative spin on it. What if you have the mentality where how long am I really going to be in this community? Am I moving on again? How
Yeah,
much
that's the thing.
energy do you want to put into it?
That's the thing, especially for study abroad students. Yeah. For you, I'm not too sure, but for me, because I went to United States for education. That's the main purpose of it. So, um, I knew that I wouldn't stay in the States for like, I don't know, 30, 40 years. Back then, I did not know. Yeah. So I knew I was gonna be in Hawaii for at least for high school and maybe college education. Yeah. But that's the thing I think for study abroad students that we knew we're gonna be in a place in a certain place for just a short period of time. And sometimes you don't want to get into the community or the school too much because you just go over there for education. Most of the study abroad students, as I observed from my observation, is that they live in the student life in the States, but they still spend time and hanging out with people from their own country.
Mm-hmm.
That actually
Right.
happens a lot, especially like, like we used to hang out with a lot of us international students. Like we
Yes.
know that. We know that. And for sure, um, for sure, hanging out with people from the same country is comfortable. But I don't think that type of person is is working him or herself as a TCK. That obviously cannot be a TCK in the first place anyway, right? That's in my perspective. I don't know if how people I don't know what you guys think, but um
Hmm.
share your thoughts with us, by the way. Share your thoughts with us, by the way. Yeah, what do you feel about TCK? Or what do you think about being a third culture kid? Um so for me, it's just I have to I because I used to play school teams for certain sports like a lot for my school. So like I had my chance, I had my opportunities to get into the communities, to talk to the local people. So that's so the local culture affected me like a lot over
Hmm.
years. That's how I that's how I think that my overlapping circle was formed.
Maybe we can talk about connection, so to speak, because that's a really important thing
That's
about
right.
being a TCK is forming those connections
Yeah.
and wanting to belong, right?
Right. Yeah.
I will say that, third culture kids have a tendency to, well, in my own experience, have a tendency to kind of be a little bit more cautious about belonging somewhere because we're always prepared to move on. So once we start to feel like we're forming a connection with another person or a group, the community, then we may start to want to latch on even stronger because it's something that is not common for us as it might be for
Mm,
others.
that's
So,
right.
you say, we talked about being part of an association at our university or being part of sports groups. That's kind of our way of forming those connections, right? And
Yeah.
um, it becomes harder to let go.
I think it's not only it's hard to let go, already it's already within the thing, the thoughts, the concept, the how you approach people, how you approach other people from other countries. Not only the locals, but other countries as well. You already have the thinking, you already have the mind to being a cross culture or third culture. Um, when you interact with people. That's how people will think you differently, see you differently as well.
Right. Yeah. I wonder. I'm trying to recall some of the connections I've had with meeting new people here and there, and wonder if maybe I'm being too guarded in some ways. Um, uh, for me personally, I wonder if I have a tendency to. It could be a combination of my Japanese cultural background as well, because in Japan, they have a term called tatemae, where you kind of put up an invisible wall in front of you. So yes, you're polite with people, but do you really try to let them in, so to speak? And if you combine that
Ah,
with being a third culture kid as well, it that could be doubled in some ways, where
right.
I may be moving on, so I'm not going to really spend too much time getting to know you. On top of that, I'm just being polite.
Is
So
it really obvious? Like, were you really obvious about it when you were a kid?
when I was a kid, I don't think I really even noticed what I was doing. And as a kid, it's pretty easy to make friends. I think, we're in the same place, we're talking to each other. I think we're friends now. The
Ah,
requirements are
I
pretty
see.
low,
I
but
see. I see.
once you hit your 20s and then 30s, then it becomes like, do we have the same values? Are we going to be in the same place for a while? Um, and there's a topic of value, right? What value do you give each other?
Right. Yeah.
And if most of those align, great, then the relationship can have a stronger foundation. But if not,
Right.
then you just might be acquaintances and that's it.
So it's easier to say that, being a TCK, friends come and go. you might met a lot of people, but you're not, having a really deep connection with other people, which we're going to talk about it later on, further down
Yeah,
the road.
yeah, I
Yeah,
would say so. And I think even non-TCKs could identify with that perspective, right? Because as you get older, the time you have to make new friends will go down.
right.
So,
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of people wouldn't. Well, people see me as an Asian, especially maybe Chinese or whatever, but particularly Asian. Um, but when they know about my background, when know about I study abroad in one of the islands in Hawaii, and then for high school, and then they will be surprised. First of all, they like I see it. I see the deeper connection after they get to know me a little bit more. But that
ah,
is that is still only scratching the surface.
mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure that happens to you, like pretty obvious. But I'm gonna let you talk about it by yourself. But for me, when I first met people in college, I would say I'm from the other island. I would say I'm from the other island, and they'll be like, "Oh, okay." Didn't expect that because they probably expect me to be like you know, um, from any Asian country or something like that. But I would say like I'm from the other island. Even though I lived there for about 3 to 4 years
That's a
before
surprise, I'm sure.
college. They
Yeah.
were surprised, or the other way around. They would say like, how come your English is so good? How come you're because back then when I speak when I spoke English, I had a little pidgin accent,
Oh,
just a little
really?
bit. I
Okay.
did. I actually did. I think because some people told me about it, but after I got into college, I think it was just I think the pidgin accent a little fading away. Yeah, but just a little bit, not like the really pigeon kind of accent. I would say 1 2 3, not 1 2 3. Yeah. So, but here's the thing: like people didn't expect me to speak quite a quite a well of English, and they were asking about my background. And
Mm.
on top of that, because there is no majority in Hawaii, which means that not a huge portion of certain ethnicity in Hawaii. So you wouldn't be surprised to see like an Asian person in Hawaii anyway.
Right. I'd say the place.
That really helps.
Hmm.
That I think that really helps. But I would describe, oh, I'm from the other island, used to go to high school over there, something something, and they would be like, oh, okay, that's surprising. Yeah. But that actually gives a little connection, especially with the local people from Honolulu, you know, from Honolulu. But that is still scratching the surface because they don't know me, and I probably don't feel like I want to let them know me too much.
Mm. I mean, Hawaii in general is like a special place in that sense because it is a mixing pot, so to speak.
It is.
We expect to see people from different cultures mixing there. Um, and for that matter, uh, being hapas, mixed ethnicities, right? Like, oh yeah, my mom was from Okinawa and my dad was from the States or something like that.
Yeah,
And that's super normal,
super.
right?
Yeah, super. You can find it anybody like that or similar to that, like on the street, like every second or something like that.
Yeah. So I think for us, going to Hawaii was a really comfortable place. I actually had lived in Hawaii for a couple years when I was a preteen, and after finishing high school, one of my top choices for a destination for college was actually Hawaii, not because of just the programs they offer, but also because of the environment for myself. I think I recalled, it was quite comfortable being there because, at that time I was already kind of going back between Western and Eastern culture, and I wanted to be in a place where I felt comfortable and accepted, not based on the color of my skin or the way I acted, because anything goes pretty much.
You
As long
probably
as
face more challenge than me, being like for me, like living Hawaii is okay for Asian people, but for you, a Caucasian person living in Japan, like when you were little, that's challenging, right?
yeah, it was half half, I'd say. Some kids were really accepting and excited to have a foreign friend, others not so much. And that's just, what was on the surface, my appearance. And then, of course, my parents are both, born and raised in the United States, in the heartlands. So, their cultural background was quite traditional, farming families, Christians, so to speak. So they had their own kind of, style of upbringing that I was part of. So, growing up in Japanese school with coming home to American parents, I think some of my, Americanness started spilling into the classroom amongst my
That's
friends.
that sounds so fantastic.
And, of course, that started to create friction between some people. Like, oh, why does he think he can be so outspoken? Why doesn't he wait his turn? And there's other things I started not learning. One memory I keep remembering is this kid telling me to stop Yobiste, his name, while we're in a lunch line. And Yobiste means like, literal translation would be like calling his name and throwing it away. And I was so confused. And finally, later, I understood that I should have added san or kun after his name. So, for example, it would be like Jon kun or Jon san, which is like I guess a suffix, so to speak, just for politeness, especially among, if you're really, really close friends, you wouldn't care. But in Japan, it's expected. And you could never do that in adult society and get away with it. But, he was kept, getting, I guess that rubbed that person the wrong way.
Wait, how old were you? How old were you when it happened?
Probably like grade 2 or grade 3.
So in Japanese culture, they started to build this kind of habit from that young of age.
Or again, that could have been something that his parents emphasized and something that he was bothered by. So,
Okay.
like, different examples like that probably cause friction with some people. And I didn't even realize it at the time, and just being so confused. And I didn't have parents to tell me otherwise because they probably didn't even understand or were aware of those kind of cultural nuances.
Okay. Okay. Wow. That's gonna be hard. Because I think if you're in like a really polite manner, focused country base. If for example, if you're a Japanese person and going to a United States, I think that's okay, right?
Hmm.
But if it's the other way around, then there are so much what they call, I don't know. Should we call it taboo? Maybe, but
Or just
like a little,
expectations.
right? Yeah, to be aware of.
Right. But I think more so these days, since there's many more foreigners living in Japan, at least, I think we can use this thing called the gaijin card, the foreigner card, where we can get away with things because, he's a foreigner, he doesn't know better.
Right, right.
But that's probably not a very healthy way to go about it.
Since you mentioned this, I don't know. Like from my perspective, the word gaijin really got spread out since the movie Tokyo Drift.
Really, Tokyo Drift.
That's in my observation. Yeah, because they were mentioned about it in the movie. But before that, I'm not too sure if anybody talked about that before before that movie.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either. but perhaps yeah, definitely some of those movies that have a root in Japan, whether it's like The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise or Tokyo Drift, people
Yeah, that's
start
true.
getting the sense that, from a Japanese perspective or any culture that's like predominantly those people that live there, then the minorities definitely get treated with that, like, they're an outsider kind of perspective
Because you
treatment.
categorize the person as an outsider, right?
Right. And then that's why Hawaii is so special, because there is no majority.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess in a certain way that we're lucky.
Yeah, I would say we're quite lucky to have been able to live in Hawaii for a prolonged amount of time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that also actually give us a chance to know a lot of outsiders. Well, we want to say it, a lot of TCKs.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a treat. And yeah, for me, I think I still want to keep meeting more TCKs and to still keep building a community, whether if it's in the same place or, around the world, but to have like-minded people who, take pride in being a TCK and are okay with not having to belong to a single culture or community.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so just for you guys to know, this show is mainly talking about more than TCK, but we want to focus on TCK in the beginning. So because it's mainly what me and Case's background is about. It's also what this channel is about. It's in between, so it's the conversation in between two of us, and we want to share our thoughts about uh, a lot of things with you guys that we hope we can share more. We can actually share more and more stories, experiences, and a lot of what we observe from the society or the community in and out of Hawaii or in other countries with you guys. And if you have any thoughts about what we talk about, what we discussed, share with us, or maybe send an email to us. Let us know your story too. Yeah, that's gonna help. Okay, so I guess we're wrapping up over here. Is there anything that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, thanks, John. Not too much from me, but I just want to say thanks to everyone for listening to what we had to talk about today. I know we talked about a variety of topics around TCK, but as John says, it's not the only topic we'll talk about. We'll touch on other things down the road.
All right, that's it for today. Thanks for listening to our first episode. Appreciate you so much to click this episode, and we hope to bring you more and more about TCK and other stuffs towards the future. We'll see you next time.
Shoot!
Shoot!